What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video and back with another Trooper format video. It's been a while since I've done one of these. I've just had a very busy week, but we should be getting back into the swing of things this week, because we've got a Trooper format tournament coming up this weekend. So if you want to join that, head on over to the YGO from Zero Discord server, linked in the description down below. And if you want to stay up to date on Trooper format content, then definitely subscribe to the channel so that way you're notified when I release new videos, because we're going to be doing a lot of Trooper this week to catch up for the time that I miss. But I'm going to start with a pretty fun deck here. This is a 6 Samurai list that is actually the same 6 Samurai list that I used in Demise format, which is the last format that I covered. Trooper format is the format based around SJC Indianapolis in 2007. Demise based around SJC Anaheim. The main difference is that it switched the ban list to June 2007, and also Force the Breaker is now out in this format. But Force the Breaker didn't really release any new cards that I really want to use in 6 Samurai. Back to the Wall, the card you could use in 6 Sams. I don't really think it's necessary, especially when you've got Return of the 6 Samurai. So I'm just going to go with the same deck that I used in my last 6 Samurai video, because it worked pretty well there. So hopefully it can work pretty well here as well. If you want a more detailed deck breakdown of this list, then definitely head on over to that video. I'll have it linked in the upper corner of this video right around now. And basically, what you need to know about this deck is that it is very cool. It's based on a list that actually won at YCS around this time that John Moore played. And it's just very cool. So I recommend playing around with it if you like the deck, because it can actually put up results. I mean, 6 Samurai did win the Demise format tournament as well, which is very, very cool. So I think this deck is pretty decent in Trooper format as well. We'll have to see how decent it is by diving into some games. Okay, first up, we got some matches against Jim Bob, a freaking guest from the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We're going to dive in to the games here. Opening up with a pretty decent hand, all things considered. Always good to open Reasoning. Reasoning and Cyber Dragon do conflict a little bit, but I do still think it's a pretty good hand. We can go for Reasoning play, and then after they've cleared that board, we can potentially go for a Cyber Dragon if we want to. So I think this is a relatively flexible hand. We could also just go for Sidra because we don't have the Grandmaster in hand, and I think that ultimately is what I'm going to do, because generally you want to do Reasoning if you draw into Grandmaster, or if you've got another 6 Sam in hand to sort of pair with that. We do have Return to, bring back 6 Sam if it does get sent to the grave. But I think that ultimately right now we can just settle by special something out of Sidra. I mean, I guess we are going to go for the Reading because of the Return. But I don't know. I'm not sure we have to do this, but they do hit the 4, so that's kind of unfortunate. We get a Zanji engraved there. And we do have Return to sort of bring that back, so we can go for that. We set 2. If they've got heavy, they've got heavy. We can go to Return to wall up a little bit that turn, but it's just kind of rough if they've got heavy. Our hand can't really deal with it as much. But they pro set the Heavy Storm if that's the case, so that's pretty good for them. They're going to go for Exiled, pop the Sidra, and we're going to use the Mirror Force on the Reaper. We could have also gone for a turn to wall off the Reaper, but I feel like Mirror Force is going to get some good value off that. We might want to use Return to wall off against some other threats later, or we might want to use it to set up a Grandmaster into Shogun play. So, they're just going to pass back to us. We saw Solemn. I mean, that's not the best pick here, but it is a decent card enough. They're going to go for a Bazoo here. They're going to use Prio to banish 2 to attack in for 2200 here. We'll take that. Dropping down to 58, they're going to set another pass back to us. We draw a TT, which isn't really the best, but we'll set that pass back to them. And that Bazoo goes down to 16, so we're feeling okay about that. They go for a Rat. We will TT that. And they're going to think about this and go for a call on the Rat. We are okay with that. It is kind of annoying that they get the Rat out, but if we manage to return back the Zanji, we can pop the Rat with the Zanji's effect to prevent it from actually getting a search, so that's pretty good. They're going to pass back to us. We draw call. We're just not drawing ways into the 6 Sams, which is a bit of a flaw with this deck, is that if you don't draw ways to turn on your 6 Sams, you are kind of just dead in the water, and we are seeing that live and in person here against what seems to be a Bazoo return. So we draw Rhoda, which is pretty good. We can go for Rhoda here, which I will indeed do. We're going to go for Rhoda and grab a Command. Command will be able to pop the Call the Haunted there if we want to do that. So we're going to go for the Command. Then we're going to go for Call on the Zanji. I could have also just gone for Return on the Zanji. That might have been better, but I don't think it matters that much. And I think it's just good to have the Zanji out for future turns as well, because it can pop the other Rats. So we are going to bring back that Zanji there with the call. We're then going to use the Command to pop that Call the Haunted, and then go for Xian here. Yeah, I guess because we were, I don't know. I think we could have definitely just returned the Zanji. Not that it matters that much, but call can be used on Xian, which can come up. So I feel like this was a bit of a misplay on my part. But I think part of the reason why I wanted to do this is because I've got True Nade in hand, and I can actually get more value off the call, because if I True Nade back the call, I can use Zanji to pop the come on instead, and then get the call back for later. So, I was thinking of that play, but yeah, it's fine. I've got Solemn for if they activate a spell trap here, and then I can True Nade back the board, and I'm feeling very, very good about this. I do, however, misplay a little bit here. They go for Sidra and Bazoo. Bazoo will get to banish 3. And that'll ultimately be fine. This can crash with the Xian, but if I go for True Nade later, I can do stuff with that. If I use Zanji to pop the come on, and then I go return to bring back the come on, True Nade back the True Nade, popping the come on, or I can just True Nade back the call without having to do return on the come on there. But they go for return here, and I think I make a major misplay here. What I should do is I should go for Solemn Judgment on this. The reason I don't go for Solemn Judgment is like, I'm doing the math, and I don't think I'm dead here yet. But what I don't realize is that if they go Giant Rat, crash into a monster, go into Grand Mole really cracks my board in a really annoying way. So I think I should just go for Solemn here. That kind of ends their turn. We do drop down to 800, though. Actually, wait, if I use Solemn, we just lose. So actually, that's why I didn't do Solemn, I guess. Because they just attack over the come on with the Bazoo, and then I lose the game. So, yeah, I guess I did have to save the Solemn here, although it is kind of awkward. Maybe I should have Solemned the Bazoo, but, I mean, then I'm sort of in the same boat, so I still lose there either way, I think. But, I mean, if they're going to go for Exiled on the Xian, we're going to use Xian to pop the come on, so that will at least get that sort of liability off the field for us. They're going to go for Bazoo, banish the Exiled now, and then try and crack the board a bit. We are going to let the Giant Rat attack go through, because if I went for a turn, they could just hit into the come on instead. I think I maybe should have still gone for a turn, because if they go into Grand Mole here off the Rat, that'd be very bad for us, and replay rules work the way they do in Modern in this format, so they would not be able to re-declare an attack with the Rat into... Well, I mean, they could redeclare into the Xian, and then we'd wind up in a similar spot, so it wouldn't really matter overall either way. But they're just going to attack into the Zanji. I let that go through because, again, if I go for a turn, they can just attack into Xian, and they still get the summon here if they want it. They're going to attack into Zanji with the Cyber Dragon, and we're going to go for a turn now to preserve the Xian, because Xian is blocking off some more damage from them. So I go for a turn here. They have to redeclare the attack. If they choose to attack into Xian, then I pop the Zanji instead. And they're going to attack into Zanji there. And unfortunately, because the Zanji was attached to the call there, and because it did get destroyed by battle, the call will go to grave here, so I won't be able to True Nade that back. So I realize that now, that should be in grave, and now we don't get that very valuable tool here. We're going to go for Xian into the Cyber Dragon there, attack over that because we got another return. So if they try to attack him with Bazoo again, like maybe setting up a Rat in grave there or something, then I can return back a 6-Sam and do stuff with that. But it is definitely a bit of an awkward spot for us here. Especially when they bring out Grand Mole, we do have to Solemn that, because Grand Mole just wins them the game on the spot, even with return here, because they can buff up the Bazoo. We're just dead either way. So we've got to go for the Solemn there. They buff up the Bazoo to 2,500, and then I'll attack into the Xian here. I think it is worth going for a return because Xian is kind of soloing them a little bit. So we bring back the Zanji in defense. They'll attack over that, and then they'll just switch the Rat to defense, pass back to us. We drop pre-map, but we can't use pre-map right now, which is very unfortunate. We set the pre-map, pass back to them, and we're in a pretty bad spot, especially when they go for Trooper here and Machine Dupe as well. So if they somehow whiff on all those mills, we are still in it, surprisingly enough. So if they do not mill up to 3 monsters here, then we actually do still survive, and we can actually potentially attack in for lethal next turn by attacking over Trooper. We've got True Nade to bounce back their back row. But getting 3 monsters within 9 cards, especially in a deck like Bazoo Return, is not the hardest thing to do in the world. So they mill 1 monster. They mill 2 monsters, all they need is 1 more, and they win, and that is the 1 more. So they will indeed be able to buff up that Bazoo, and then attack in for lethal damage. So very, very intense game here. I think I did misplay earlier in the game. But, that does happen sometimes. And again, if you don't draw the 6-Sams, you can be in a very, very tough spot. And that is kind of what happened to us there. This hand's much better, though. This hand's really good. Any hand where you get Grandmaster online is extremely good. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to set 3 and pass. Because 1, we've got TT if they really go for someone crazy here. But 2, we've got Sidra that we want to bring out. And then make a major offensive push with the Iroh and the Grandmaster as well. So We're trying to set up for some major things coming down the pipeline. There's going to set 2 pass back to us. Honestly, that's the best sort of board they could have set up for us because we've got Solemn to stop whatever that back row is. We got Iroh to hit over the set, and we just drew into Shien, so actually we can go for a lethal push here. So we special summon out the Sidra, summon out Iroh, summon out Grandmaster, and then summon out the Great Shokin Shien. And now this should be enough to kill here. We go for Iroh, pop that set. It's a spy, so that will get destroyed. And we'll attack him for 21, 21, and then 25, driving them down to 1300, and then we have the ring here to close out the game. Even if we have to drop by half due to Solemn here, we do just win on the spot here. So that will be the end of the game there. And going on to game 3, I mean, that definitely shows how explosive this deck can be here. We're going on to game 3 here, and this is another really good opener. Any opener where you have 6 Samurai into Grandmaster into Shien, that is a killer hand. So there's going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw Reasoning, so things get even better here. They do have a Dust Shoot, so they are able to shuffle things back. Dust Shoot is at 3 in this format, one of my least favorite parts about this format, but this is the last format where Dust Shoot's at 3, so that's very, very nice. But they send back the Command, which I think is indeed smart, because that does turn on our entire hand here. We can still go for Reasoning, try and get out a 6 Sam here. They are going to call 3, try and hit the Yaichi, so that gives us a bit of information about what their set might be. The fact that they want us to not get out of 6M that can pop it means it might be something like a Mirror Force. It's probably not a TT because they could TT the board on the summon of Yaichi. So that to me says that it has to be Mirror Force or something like that. So what I'm going to do here is instead of going for the Shien, I'm just going to bring out the Grandmaster, attack in for 18 plus 21, and it is indeed the Mirror Force. So that means that I'll just add back this Grandmaster here. We've got return for follow-up plays to bring back that Zanji on the following turn to then bring out Grandmaster and Shogun and push our luck there. They do know both these back row, but I do think it is still good to set 2. They might have heavy. If they've got heavy, it's unfortunate. But we really need to set return to make our next turn go live. And I don't want them to just blind MST our back row and hit that return. So they're going to go for Trooper here. They're going to mill 3, and then they're going to attack in for 19. I could use Mirror Force here, but I don't really think it's necessary. They get a draw anyways, so I don't want them to draw into a thing to stop what we got going on. We draw into another 6M anyway, so we're just going to go Iroh, special summon out Grandmaster, special summon out Shien, and get in for a ton of damage here. That's going to be 21 plus 21 plus 17. And then we could go for a Zanji if we wanted to as well. But it's not quite lethal, so I don't necessarily know if I want to do that. It might still be good, though, because bringing back the Zanji cuts off a couple key things. Cuts off things like BrainCon, cuts off things like Premat. And also with Ring, if they want to ring the Iroh, they still live. Whereas here, you know, if they'd ring anything, they're just dead. So I think in hindsight, it actually would have been better to just get aggressive here, bring back the Zanji with the return, just to really cut off a lot of their follow-up plays. But I decided to just leave it there, because I'm figuring, like, if they clear the Iroh or something and then they set a card, then I want to be able to bring back the Iroh. So they go for a Sidra here, and then they'll attack over our Iroh. I'm going to just Mirror Force that because we've got a very aggressive front here. They're just going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw a Sidra, and we're just going to get cracking in. I mean, Iroh can clear the set if it goes through. It is a Crush card, though. That's going to be a bit unfortunate for us. But we should still be able to win. We're actually not going to add back the Grandmaster here. We're going to add back the Iroh because we can go for Return of the 6 Samurai to grab back the Grandmaster and attack in for lethal damage. So we almost didn't see that line. We almost just added back the Grandmaster on instinct, but it is good to note when you can use Return a bit flexibly to bring back the Grandmaster. So that will indeed be the end of the game. Exact lethal here. Very, very cool stuff. And I am ultimately glad that you know, I saved the return, because if I hadn't saved the return, then, you know, we wouldn't have actually been able to kill here. Now, that might be a bit of hindsight talking, which you generally should not use in analyzing replays. I generally try not to do that. But I do think that having return as a flexible option is also a defendable play. It's just whether you want to get more aggressive with it or not. But this wasn't the only match that I got with Jim Bob. We enjoyed this match so much that we wanted to dive into another. So let's dive into that one now. Okay, we got our next match against Jim Bob here. And we're going to be going second here. We lost the RPS. And this hand is honestly not bad. I don't hate this hand. We have got Grandmaster, which is always a good thing. If you ever draw Grandmaster, you're always happy because that means that your plays are really online. But they're going to just T-set pass back to us. We draw into Solemn. We've got 2 Solemns now, which is pretty interesting. We're just going to set 4 pass. I figure I want to keep a card that I'm fine discarding for the Phoenix Wing Windblast on field. So we'll just keep these swords. They're just going to flip up a rat. We let that go through. We could have TT'd there, but I wanted to save it for after they've used up their normal summon. They're just going to attack with the rat, though, and pass back to us. We draw another Grandmaster. This is one of the few instances where you're not actually happy to draw into Grandmasters, because if you have 2, they're kind of useless. You can only bring out 1 at a time. So Swords will come down here just because we don't have anything to do here, so we might as well just stick a swords and wait on it a bit. We draw heavy, which is kind of bad with this board, but it is what it is. We played how we had to in our opening hand. I do think it was the correct move overall, but it does make things a bit awkward now. We draw into Chien as well. Oh, that is rough. I mean, this is why we play swords, because sometimes we do need to sort of stall out for a bit to preserve our life points, and that will not help us here. We're just going to pass back to them. Not looking good, but we do have a TT here if they do commit another monster to board. So we're not taking the most amount of damage here. They're going to set another pass back to us. We draw Zanji. Zanji's actually a bit interesting. We can summon that out, and they're going to try booking that, and we will allow that to go through because we got this return here to bring it back in the future. They go for DD Warrior Lady here, and I ultimately will TT that. I figure a 2-for-3 trade is pretty good, especially when we do have a return to bring back the Zanji. We've also got a Phoenix from Windblast that we can use to spin back whatever monster they summon out. We can even pitch a Grandmaster to potentially bring that back off return if we so wish. They're going to bring out a Trooper here, and that is going to be fine. They don't use Prio, and upon not using Prio, there is an argument here to Phoenix from Windblast. Because one of the reasons why you wouldn't use Prio on a trooper is that you don't necessarily want to mill your other troopers in deck for something like machine duplication. But I did not think of that at the time, and it does come back to bite me now. And also, this does depend on the matchup. There are some decks that don't necessarily want to mill right away, so you do have to keep that in mind. But for Bazoo return, generally you want monsters in grave, so you do want to be milling as much as possible. So generally you want to use Prio on the trooper summon in case they have something, right? TT's gone, so maybe it wouldn't have really mattered for us here. But there are other things that can potentially get that trooper off field. For instance, Phoenix Wind Windblast. If we had chosen the Phoenix Wind Windblast, that monster would have summoned, they wouldn't have gotten the mills there. So, it's a bit tricky, but I do think that, we should have gone for Freedom Swing here. Now, them going for Machine Dupe is really bad for us. They get out 1900 times 3, which is a lot of damage here. We can return, and we can Phoenix Swing to sort of mitigate the damage a little bit. But I think ultimately it just is better to go for a Solemn here just to stop that from going through, because that is too much damage. We can't really take that right now. Unfortunately, they've got another Machine Dupe, and yeah, I got to fire this other Solemn here. You might also be wondering why I did not use Phoenix Wing to shovel back the Trooper upon Machine Dupe being activated and targeting the Trooper. The reason is, in this format, you actually can still bring out multiple Troopers from deck if the monster gets removed from field with something like Random Destruction or Phoenix Wing. So, it's good to know for some of these retro formats that Machine Dupe works that way. And they're going to mill 3 off that Trooper and then go for Premat as well, trying to bring back the side row, which will indeed go through. And then they're going to attack in for 19. And the Premat does stay on field, which is very important here. We will Phoenix Wing Windblast back that Trooper there. And then they're going to attack in for 21, and we will go for return to target the Zanji here. So I also could have targeted the Grandmaster. It didn't really matter either way. But the reason I pitched a Grandmaster Grave was mainly because I had another one in hand, so I didn't really pay to have another one lying around my hand. And we've also got a Heavy Storm here that we want to use to blow up their back row now that we've used up all of ours. So they're going to pass back to us. We draw Rhoda, which is really perfect here. We really needed that Rhoda to get into a 6-Sam here. And now we can go for heavy on their back row and also popping the Sidra. We can then Rhoda into this Zanji here, which has the most attack. And then we can special summon out this Grandmaster and then special summon out this Chien and attack in for 18 plus 21 plus 25. So we're still not out of the woods yet. We are at only 1300, which is a scary spot to be in. But I think this is ultimately a pretty decent board. So they go for, they don't have enough for Brain Con. Yeah, that's rough. So we drop them down to 800, which is a very, very important life point threshold. And yeah, they're not able to go for Brain Con here, take control of our monster, and then summon out a Ryza to get back into this game. So, yeah, that was a kind of wild game. Definitely shows that the deck can brick, but also how explosive the deck can be when you manage to get the pieces that you need to unbrick. So, very, very cool stuff there. We're going into the game number 2. And this is a pretty decent hand overall. We don't have Grandmaster, which is unfortunate, but we do have Rhoda to search out whatever 6-Sam we might need. Ring is pretty good as well. We're just going to bring out the Iroh here. They're going to Mind Crush, and they're going to call Grandmaster. I'm very happy about this because we don't actually have a Grandmaster in hand. This is part of actually the reason why I just summoned out Iroh. There is an argument for going for Rhoda and grabbing something else like a Zanji just because more attack. But I want to get the Iroh in rotation. I've got Premat to bring it back anyways. I've also got Ring and Solemns, so if they bring out a big thing to get over the Iroh, I can ring it. If they threaten the Iroh in other ways, we got Solemns. But I figured it is just going to be good to get the Iroh in rotation. The big sort of punish to this is Bottomless. Bottomless is rough indeed. But I think it is still worth going forward here because they could potentially do something like this. And they do indeed do it. I think this is generally a smart play on the part of someone facing against 6-Ams, if a 6-Am comes down, mind crushing a Grandmaster is a good thing to do, especially if you don't have another way to deal with Grandmaster. But unfortunately for our opponent, it will come back to bite them here. So they do get a peek at our hand, which is nice for them, but they do lose a random card from our hand, which will be a machine dupe. So we're just going to set everything. I mean, they know about it anyways, so we don't really need to do it. If I was playing around Mind Crush a little bit more, I could have set these first and then gone for the Iroh. But I mean, I don't know. I think this was fine. Mind Crush is a one of, I'm pretty sure, like limited to one, not just people playing one of it in the deck, but it is limited to one copy in this format, I'm pretty sure. That might be the next. No, I think it is this format, yeah. But our opponent's going to flip up a Spy here, get another Spy in defense, and then tribute that for a Ryza. We're going to think about this, and we are ultimately going to solemn that because we don't want to be behind a turn on draw. And, we don't actually have a way to deal with the Ryza, really, besides, like, Ring, which we don't necessarily want to use. What we want to be doing is rotating into a Zanji next turn, and then cracking into that Spy, attacking directly for 17. So we will solemn that Ryza there. They go for the pre-mat here, and that ultimately will be fine, because what we want to do here is we want to ring the Ryza now, to, deal some damage to them, sure, but also to just get it off the field. So they're going to go into battle phase, attack into our Iroh. We're going to ring the Ryza there. We do drop down pretty low, but Solemn is still online. It's always online. And it will potentially turn off pre-mat, which is unfortunate, but it is still pretty good, especially when we do draw into this Shien. We're going to go for a Yaichi here instead of the Zanji because, we've got Shien to beat over the Spy, so we don't need the Zanji anymore. We're going to go for Yaichi here. We're going to go for Prio, pop a Lightning Vortex. That is really good. I mean, we did have Solemn for that anyways, but, like, really good to hit that. Now we're going to attack in for 25 over that Spy. We have to use Solemn on Mirror Force anyways. So I guess if we had hit the Mirror Force, we would have just solemned the Vortex, so it didn't really matter here either way for what we hit. But we kind of have to go for this, even though they could potentially draw into Sidra, attack over Yaichi. That is a possible outcome. If they draw Bazoo, they can attack over the Yaichi as well. So there are things that kill us in this situation, but if we didn't do this, we were pretty much dead anyways. Although you could argue that we let the Mirror Force go through, then we pre-mat back the Shien and keep the Solemn online. That might have been a better option because then we're still at the same amount of life points, but we're not as vulnerable here. They do still have the Spy though, but if they draw into like Ryza, for instance, they have to tribute over the Spy, and then we Solemn that, and then we're in a good spot for the future. So I think actually, yeah, it might have been better to just let the Mirror Force go through and then pre-mat back the Shien. I didn't see that line at the time, but it might have been the correct line. But who's to say? It's tough to tell in situations like this. And, we do get aggressive. So if they don't draw a way to deal with this, then we do win next turn. Either way here. And they do indeed not draw a way to deal with that. They just draw into a TT. So, yeah, I think ultimately this was pretty good for us. I mean, honestly, if we'd gone for the pre-mat play, it might have come back to bite us here because we wouldn't have been able to get as much damage in on them. They would still have the Spy, so we'd have to take it much, much slower here. And we would eventually have to summon, and then TT would blow up the board, which would be kind of rough for us. So going more aggressive here, as opposed to leaving them an opening to actually do something like TTS, might have been the correct move here. It's just tough to say. I think with an aggressive deck like 6-Ams, it is pretty good to get aggressive when you can. So I do support going for this play, but the pre-mat play for the Shien might have been a bit slicker, especially with the Solemn as backup. But what do you think about that? Let me know down in the comments below. This isn't the last game that I got with the deck, so I'll show off a couple more now, because I really like this deck a lot, so I played a fair bit with it. But, I always love hearing what you all have to say in the comments down below. Okay, for our final couple of games, we got some matches against Worldo, Dark God, another frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. And, there won't really be like any like super meta decks in this video, unfortunately. I know people generally like when I get those. But I just couldn't quite find any this time around. Although I could have potentially recorded some after I got back from my busy week. But I think these matches are ultimately pretty good for 6-Ams. I do think 6-Ams is maybe not a tier 1 deck, but I do think it is like at least tier 2. And for tier 2 decks, I think it can suffice just to show that it does well against a lot of the sort of interesting other decks that are running around in the format. But we go for Sidra plus reasoning here because if we do hit a 6-Am, then we summon out Iroh and then bring out Shien, and then we're feeling very, very good. And also to note, while Grandmaster had a condition where you can't summon more than one of it, Shien did not have that condition, so we could have potentially gone for that if we were just willing to brave like Mirror Force and TT. But here we're just going to bring out an Iroh. That will get bottomless, which is very unfortunate for us. Bottomless can be a bit tricky for this deck to deal with. And then we attack over their set with the Sidra. And unfortunately, it's a Warrior Lead, so that will banish that. We set this call so we can bring back the Zanji that got sent to grave earlier here, which can be pretty good for us. But, there's an argument for holding it, which we will indeed do. They're not getting aggressive with us, so I figure, we can potentially save that call for later, especially when we draw into Cyber Dragon. So if they ever do bring in a monster, then it's good to cider that in. We go for setting a Phoenix Blade here, or not Phoenix Blade, Phoenix Wing, and they go for a yellow gadget. So it seems like they're on a sort of gadget deck here. They're going to grab a green and attack in for 1200 with that yellow. We'll take it. We're not afraid of that chip damage, and they're going to set one more, pass back to us. They set a new back row, which we will Phoenix Wing back to the top. Now we have the option to potentially go for call on Xian, which is kind of funny. Especially in a deck like this, which is trying to use up multiple back row a turn to protect its stuff. We're going to go for a side right here. And then we're actually going to go for a pre-mat, or not a pre-mat, a Braincon on the yellow, and then tribute both for a Xian. So we'll bring that out, tack in for 2,500, and that will indeed go through. So we feel very, very good about this. I think about this, about whether to use the call to bring back like another Xian to get in for 2,500 more, but I figure we should still have likely lethal lines on the following turn anyways. We can't get a complete lethal line here because Ring will not quite cut it. But I do think that this is pretty good, especially with a Solemn as backup here. They go for Grand Mole. Oh, that's kind of rough. I mean, I could have potentially Solemn the Grand Mole, but I do have Ring for that Grand Mole, so I could use that instead. I think in hindsight, I should have just rung the Grand Mole, but I'm focused on getting Ring for like my lethal line here, so that's why I don't do that. But I probably should have just rung the Grand Mole. It would have been a bit better for us, and then I could sort of wait a little bit on the lethal line. But we draw into, or we wrote it into an Iroh here and try and attack in for 17 plus 25. They do have mirror for that, but we can call back the Xian if we so wish, and we do indeed so wish. So we're going to call back that Xian and attack in for 2,500, and that will indeed go through. I don't know what those two back row that have been sitting there for a bit are, but I'm feeling pretty confident about them, and we've got Ring set. So if we get in one more attack with the Xian, then we can ring for game here. They're going to go for a Cyber Dragon. They're going to search out a red with a green here, and then they're going to attack in to the Xian here. Now, we think about this on attack deck. The reason why they'd be doing this potentially is if they've got either a shrink or a limiter removal. If they've got limiter removal, then we'd lose the game from this. So I do think that I have to ring the Cyber Dragon here. If they chain limiter, then it does boost up the Cyber Dragon to kill us both. So that's ultimately fine. They float up the shrink even after I did the thinking phase. Don't do that. If your opponent gives the thinking phase, give them time to think until they say like, what they're actually going to do or not. So yeah, we do ring the Cyber Dragon. Unfortunately, they can still get over the Xian here because they do have the shrink. So they will be able to shrink down that Xian, and we will indeed lose that. But this isn't unwinnable for us from this position, although those couple extra back row might make it so. We set this True Nade, pass back to them, and unfortunately, I think our greed with the Solemn on the Grand Mole really did come back to bite us, because I think if we had rung the Grand Mole and saved the Solemn for something else, especially like a Shrink, I think we would have been in a much better spot here. But you live and learn, we also could have used Solemn on the Mirror Force, which actually probably would have been, we probably would have won the game if we had done that. So, yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. For some reason, this was hosted in single. So, we're going to go into game 2 now. And we're going to dive into a match. Generally, it's good to get matches for these sorts of things because siding is an important factor in how these decks play and whether they can win or not. So, we are going to go into game 2 here after siding a bit. Although, I don't think I sided too much in. But we go for reasoning, and then we can hit a Yaichi, summon an Iroh, and then bring out a Grandmaster as well. Now we can set a call and return, pass back to them. We've got Yaichi to pop one of their back row, and, we've got some things to potentially pop our other 6Ms here to preserve them more. They go for Nobleman of Extermination, which is a bit rough for us because both these cards cannot be used right now because we got nothing engraved. So it's kind of rough. They will hit the call, which is a bit more of a general target, but it does mean that they will lose a call of their own. So I'm feeling okay about that. They set 2, go for yellow, grab a green here, and then they're going to just set another pass back to us. We draw Royal Decree, which is one of the cards we sided in here. Pretty good card against their deck. We're going to Yaichi, target one in the back row. It's going to be a Shrink, so they're going to target the Grandmaster there. I'm ultimately okay with that. We're just going to switch the Yaichi to defense in case it's Mirror Force, and then attack him with the Iroh. It's a Ring, though. We are just going to take that. I value the Yaichi being on field more than I value the Iroh being on field. And we do have a return to bring back the Iroh if we want to here, which we might actually do because we're going to set Decree on the follow-up anyways. So we are indeed going to do that. Go for the Iroh and then attack over the yellow here. So that will indeed go through. And we're going to attack in for 1050 with that Grandmaster. Main 2, we're just going to summon another Iroh and then set a Decree, pass back to them. So this Iroh can sort of serve as more protection for the Yaichi here. And they're going to think about this a bit and bring out a Winged Rhynos. So that's a very, very cool card. This is sort of building on the Zuxid Winged Rhynos Edison deck. that also got second at YCS Lille. So I will be featuring that deck on this channel for Trooper format probably this week. Don't you worry. And I'm looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun. But we'll take the 100 off that Wing Rhynos attack into the Iroh there, because I do want the Yaichi to just continue sniping back row. And then they're going to pass back to us. In end phase, we go for a Decree, and we'll see if that's fine. If they bounce back the Rhynos, then I get in 3,400 damage, which might actually be lethal damage if we draw to another 6 Sam. So they might not want to do that, and indeed they do not. And we draw to another Grandmaster, so that doesn't really do much for us here. But we can pop that set with the Yaichi, and then we can switch it to attack, because we don't have to worry about things like Mirror Force and stuff. And this means if a yellow gadget comes down, or a red gadget even, I can't like necessarily trade the best with the Yaichi. They only take 300 here because the Yaichi can't attack right now. But it is still pretty decent, I think. They attack into the Yaichi. We are just going to think about this and ultimately pop the Grandmaster because we got another Grandmaster in hand. So no reason not to, in my opinion. And they're just going to pass back to us. We draw into a TT as well, which is useless under Decree. That is one of the risks of siding in Decree with this deck. You kind of do have to side in a fair amount of traps. But a lot of the traps are very good. So you still want to keep some of them in. But I'll probably work on the side deck more in the future here. They go for red. Red will search out a yellow here. And this time, if the red attacks into the Yaichi, I think I'm just going to let it go because I've got 2,100 damage on board. If I draw another 6 Sam, that's going to be pretty good for me. And reasoning might be that other 6 Sam. We go for reasoning here. They call force. That is indeed correct. But we can still attack in for 2,100. They're down to 350, which shuts off things like Pre-Mat or Brain Con. We set a TT here just as sort of like a bluff. If they use an MST on our Decree, then we can turn on the TT, which is nice. And they set one of their own. We also brought in a Mind Crush because they're on gadgets. It's weird to bring in Mind Crush and Decree, but I do think Mind Crush is very good against this deck. And we got Decree up. The way I figure it is if we got Decree up, we're winning the game anyways, probably. Because their deck just can't deal with Decree. So even if I'm playing these traps that do brick us for a bit, if we got Decree and a monster up, like we are feeling very good. Shrink can come up. Which can be bad for us, but I think ultimately it is pretty good. We go for swords here just to flip up that monster, see what it is. If it's like Morphing Jar, that could draw us into 5 more and potentially give us a lethal line. But it's just a yellow gadget, so we'll attack it in that, pass back to them. They go for Grand Mole here, but they can't attack because of these swords. So they're just going to leave it there, pass back to us. Which, you know, Grand Mole is a bit of an annoying card, but we can just bring out the Zanji attack into the Grand Mole, and that will be the end of the game. So yeah, they did have an MST for the Decree, but it was not, unfortunately, enough. They could have maybe gone MST on swords and attacked in with the Grand Mole to Grandmaster, just in case we did not draw another 6 Sam. But, you know, either way, they were dead here. So, yeah, I mean, that definitely shows how Decree can definitely solo against the Wing Rhynos deck, if it does manage to get resolved. But we got one more game, you know, the all-important game 3, and we're going to be going into this one. We're going second. We draw into Heavy and Decree, which is a little bit awkward, but I do think, like, Decree is just a good opener in general. We can just use the Heavy early and then set the Decree up for later. So they're just going to summon on a gadget, set 1, pass back to us, and I'm just going to Heavy the board. It's a jar, so doesn't really trade too favorably for us, but again, we want a Heavy and then go for Decree on the following turn. So we bring out Iroh here, and then main 2, we're just going to set a return, set a Decree, pass back to them, and see what they do. They're going to go Pre-Mat on the green, so they can do that, and also get a red out from deck, but they're going to choose not to search for some reason. I don't know why. But they do bring out Mobius. Mobius is very annoying for us here. That does kind of ruin our Decree, and I mean, we had return set because if they had like MST for the Decree or something like that, then that'd be bad. But yeah, maybe we should have just set Decree and then held return for later, but I don't know. It's just kind of rough here. They're attacking for 700 over the Iroh. Set 1, pass back to us. The Pre-Mat is gone, by the way. And this is a bit awkward for us. If we draw into one of our tribute monsters, we can potentially Brain Con the Mobius and tribute over it. But I decided ultimately just to hold this because if I draw into Grandmaster, I might want the Iroh around. I could have potentially committed it because I've also got reinforcements here, so I can get back something from deck, like potentially even another Iroh. But I figure, like, I'm not at too much risk of dying because this is a relatively slow deck, but they do bring out a Rhynos here, and they will pass back to us. We draw Zanji, so we're just bricking on some of these 6 Sams here, which may be another reason to have gone for the Rhoda, because Rhoda will sort of get our deck 1 card thinner. But I want the Rhoda for utility later in case we need to get a specific 6 Sam. But unfortunately, it's not really working out for us. I used BrainCon to at least clear the Rhynos and then set Nairo, set the Rhoda, pass back to them. I'm saying Rhoda is a bluff now, honestly, but it's kind of the best that we got because we are very, very close to death here. They will attack over the Iroh with the Mobius and pass back to us. We draw Call, which is pretty good. Call is a very, very good card. We can potentially set up some 6 Sam plays here, but we're not drawing into the really good 6 Sams for us, and we don't really have any super good ones for Rhoda here. We can summon out Zanji and attack into their set, though, so that's kind of nice. But it's a warrior lead, so that will clear the Zanji as well. And yeah, that's probably not going to do it for us. They set 1 attack in for 24. We do have the call to bring back the Iroh to at least, stay alive one more turn. But yeah, this is not in the cards for us here, unfortunately. We'll take 7, and come on, will not quite do it. It will wall us up for a turn, but that probably will not be enough. There goes the red gadget. And if they do attack in the correct order, which they should attack in red and then Mobius, because all the 6Ms have very, very little defense. And they do indeed do that, and that will indeed be the end of the game. So rough stuff. I think maybe if I had said differently the first turn, maybe if I had held the return, we could have potentially done stuff with like Zanji and some other 6Ms. But the issue with this is that we don't have the tools to get out multiple 6Ms in one turn, like effectively. Like we'd have to get out 3 to really like crash in the Zanji into the Mobius and clear it, which we don't quite have access to. So yeah, I don't really think there was a good way to get out of this. Again, if I had rotated and thinned out my deck a little bit, maybe that would have changed things. But we play so many 6Ms in the deck that then get 1 warrior, I don't think really matters like that much in the grand scheme of things. So it's better to use Rhoda as a utility card in this sort of deck, in my opinion. But maybe it could have changed things. I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. But definitely a rough game 3 here. I do think this deck is generally favored against Rhynos, but again, the deck can brick, and we've seen it brick in different ways over the course of this video. We've seen it brick on multiple Grandmaster, multiple Shien. We've seen it brick on just multiple weak 6Ms, right? And that is one of the flaws of the deck that if you play the deck, you do have to know about, right? It's not always just going to pop off. When it does pop off, it's really cool, but when it doesn't pop off, it can be a bit frustrating. And, good play can generally get you out of those situations a fair amount of the time. But good play can also only get you so far in certain situations. And sometimes you will just lose despite that, But that's Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Like sometimes, even if you play the best you can, you don't always win. And I'm not saying that I played this deck the best that it could be played. I'm just saying in general, it's a truism of the game. And it's part of why we love the game so much. There's always that comeback mechanic. And there's always the risk that everything could go downhill, even if you're playing as well as you can. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. As always, I'm going to be releasing more Trooper videos later in the week, so definitely stay tuned for that. And also look forward to the locals that we're going to be having for Trooper format later in the week as well. And also the big monthly event that I mentioned at the beginning of the video will be happening on Sunday. So head on over to the YG from Zero Discord server if you want to participate in that. Also, if you like this sort of content, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us quite a bit. We're trying to grow our community even more to have bigger events, bigger tournaments, and with your help, we can get there. Also, as always, big shout out to my patrons, Rinswin, Porkchop, Brent Knocker, Tyler Compton, GeoMyFS, Dumbtruck, and Scout Zero. It means a lot that you all support me this way. Encourage me to make more videos like this one in the future. If you want to join the Patreon, link it in the description down below. I hope you enjoyed this video as always. Until next time, I've been Ben from YG from Zero, and I'm signing off.